As Karen rightly said, a man who very rarely does interviews. He's done quite a few. He had an interview with Sky today that has probably got him trending already. Let's just look at his direct quote and what he said about his future during that Sky interview. And he was, I think, talking about the fact that he probably is going to be in his last year at the club, which, yeah, there you go. There's the quote. It's my last year in the club. Well, it is, because he hasn't signed a new contract. It doesn't seem like he's saying anything new, but for him to come out and say it, and he's been hinting, hasn't he? I'm more out than in.
Yeah.
Now it's my last year in the club.
It feels like it's almost like every month he's getting progressively stronger. As you say, before he said, no, more out than in. Then there was that moment after the Southampton game where he said there was no offer, and now he's saying it's my last year, albeit with a caveat. And that's why, as strong as the words are, and obviously it's a very big headline, I'm actually not too sure that much has changed in terms of the story. My suspicion is still that, and from what I've heard as well, is that it's him attempting to force the situation. He wants to stay.
Give us the numbers. I think you know a bit more than this. You're on top of it. What does he want? What's he getting?
So the talk, though, I mean, it's been reported in the media, it's what we've heard also, is that it would involve an increase of at least around 100,000 a week. So we're thinking from, I mean, again, with wages, we're usually talking ballpark figures rather than specifics because we don't have the contract. But like, so a jump from around 300,000 to 400,000. And I think from what I've heard, Liverpool will be willing to commit to that for the first 2 years. But the issue is that he is 32. It's the kind of the commitment he wants, and I suppose the security as well. And he wants that for 3 years. And of course, once you get to that, and a player who will be 35 at that point, I suppose a project or a club as kind of detailed on this sort of thing as Liverpool, they don't tend to give out contracts like that because of the concern that players can quickly physically wane. They have seen it before. They've seen the examples at other clubs when suddenly you've got a player who's anchored to this huge contract that can't give you the same returns. And that's where I think why we're still in this situation, and why there's actually a lot of posturing from both sides, really most posturing from Salah, given he's coming out and saying things like this.
But he's also doing it on the pitch, because his numbers are unbelievable.
And you know, when you're saying about his age, and I'm not saying this to objectify him in that way, but you know when he's took his top off and he's celebrated, that's also a signal to say, doesn't matter my age, look how in shape I am, look, I'm doing the stats, I'm doing the numbers. And we can talk about the club in terms of not wanting to, you know, give players at 32 contracts, but how have they left three players to get to this position in no contracts is beyond me. But this guy is crushing it, and I think the way that Arne Slot plays as well, less heavy metal, so it's less intense, actually suits Salah and perhaps players that are over 30. But I hate this thing of when you hit 30, it's always like downwards. The way the game is going now, that number is irrelevant. Yeah. And I think it's changing. People are breaking that time and time every season.
And look at the four of the most famous players of the last decade, or last century, really. Yep. Messi, Ronaldo, Ibrahimovic and Lewandowski, all going well into their late 30s. And on that as well, I mean, Liverpool are so invested in the maths and the kind of the science of this. And the one thing I think, and if you reduce it to that in the probability, well, what's likelier, that they can actually raise goals or that Salah will drop off? I think it's less likely that he drops off, which is why it would feel like the kind of the safer calculation is to stick with Salah.
Even for Salah, who's been so consistently excellent, he has gone up a notch. He's definitely in the shop window. And just looking at that goal against West Ham, Liverpool had 5 different scorers. They were just in a class above. But he was still the puppet master, the finesse, the nutmegs, the way he was assisting.
Everything, you know, I did Generation XG 2 or 3 times on Liverpool Matchday Live. Every analysis I do on them, they've got so many good players, but it always pivots to him. It always goes to Salah, always ends with Salah. They're always trying to create him that 1v1s. Arne Slot is creating more opportunities for him. I think just in the style this season, you know, he's obviously had great numbers before, but it just feels like he's still the main guy. And I think you can't replace him. You literally can't. And I think it's a huge risk for Liverpool to let him go. And I think that, I'm shocked really if he's going to leave.
Even worse news for Manchester United, because he's got 12 goals and 6 assists in games against them. No player scored more against them. Yeah.
I mean, and he's another factor that kind of weighs over this fixture for United. And it's actually remarkable. I mean, and this sums up the two clubs of the past few years, and also Salah's centrality to that. If you look at the 7 decades before 2021, there have only been 2 games where one of Liverpool United won by 4 goals. Liverpool have only subjected United to that 3 times in the last 3 years. A 4-0, a 5-0, a 7-0. And Salah, as we can see now, central to that. And with the way the form is at the moment, with the way Salah's form is, especially those goals against West Ham during the week, I mean, it's hard not to think it could be similar to the weekend. It's Salah central to another big Liverpool win.
Honestly, yeah. Especially how Man United are at the moment. You'll be thinking happy days, had a few more goals and assists, I'm sure. But I just still trying to get over the timing as well of that news today with it. I think it shocked me a little bit, because I was just thought Trent would go, but I didn't think Salah would. And he still might not. It's still obviously, and you're right, he maybe was trying to negotiate that, but still a little bit shocked at the timing as well.
We actually hadn't thought about the timing. When you mentioned it and we were listening to something else, we kind of were like, yeah, they're playing Man United on Sunday.
It's massive, like, that rivalry. I don't need to tell everyone at home and what that rivalry is, and to have that and it come out as well. It just, I don't know, it seems a bit strange.
But it feels like that's maybe part of the kind of step up as well. I mean, as we said, when he made previous comments, one of them was actually the morning after victory over Southampton. Again, it's after the game. It's a game that isn't of the same magnitude. Whereas this, and even though maybe we're seeing in the sense of Liverpool, or Salah not necessarily looking at Manchester United in the same way he used to, it still is, as you say, it's the biggest fixture in English football. The two most successful clubs, the two best supported clubs, most popular around the world, with all of that history to it, and not like despite form that can produce strange results. So I mean, yeah, once Karen brought it up, you think it was maybe a slightly odd time just to change the chemistry of the build-up almost.
Yeah. Is that rivalry more historic now? Because, I mean, the clubs are just indifferent.
I mean, it'll always be there, though, that kind of local animosity, and you only have to speak to the fans and who they most want to beat. Yeah. That never goes away. But you're absolutely right in terms of just, I mean, it's been a very strange historical rivalry in that they've never really been very good. For England's two most successful clubs, they've never been at the top at the same time. Yeah, so there's been very few seasons actually where they've even gone up against each other in a title race. I think the only one in the Premier League era was 08-09. And it's always been like one has been way below. But of course the big difference this time, one has been below. The big difference this time is that one is way, way below. And a gap I don't think we haven't seen for decades between the two.
Do you feel like it's more historic now? It's not Man United, Liverpool of old?
No, I think it always is. I think both, as you said, you speak to the fans, it's a rivalry. It doesn't matter, that rivalry goes back so many, many years and so many meaningful matches. So it's still there. Like you said, the competitiveness, I think there's a big gap between both of them. But come that whistle, you can't take away also what Man United have done on one-off games over the last couple of seasons. Yeah. There is a gulf, but they can step up. Will they? I don't think they will, but you can't rule that off. And I think even Arne Slot said, look, they are playing better than where it says, but
that is a slightly strange thing at the moment, because even, like, I mean, if you go back to the 70s and 80s, when Liverpool were dominant, United used to pride themselves on getting these, as you mentioned, these sudden results out of nowhere against their great rivals, and they'd rise to the game. And similarly, when Ferguson was dominant for 2 decades, Liverpool did the same, and they were always even games. But that's what's been so strange about this period, that Liverpool have really made their superiority count in such a kind of extreme way. And actually, these, not surprise results, but these moments when the team on lesser form gets a result, they've been fewer and far between. In fact, but the last one was really, and that was a shock in itself, when Ten Hag claimed his first win at Manchester United in his own first game against Liverpool back in September 2022, and how Amram could do with that now.
Can I just say, Arne Slot has come in and had to deal with so much. Firstly, stepping into Jurgen Klopp's shoes, then being, at the forefront of this title race, and now these 3 players, the contracts, being out of contracts in the summer. He had to answer in nearly every press conference.
And he's so calm.
Yeah.
Like, I love him, I do. To do what to follow Klopp, who's obviously an absolute legend, and just to come in and he's, made it look so easy. He's just but no, it's for him. He's just got to get Trent playing as good as possible, and he has. Like he said, there's not a lot he can do. It's kind of the contract's coming to an end. Liverpool obviously would love to have him, but he's just got to keep him playing well and keeping him fit and sharp. And unfortunately, it's probably not in Arne Slot's hands. He's just got to keep the player motivated and help him get up the table.
Yeah, I think that goal, obviously, the deflection. We can all see it's a massive deflection, but he scored. The celebration, the celebration for me was telling. Look at that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really know who that's directed at, mind, because, I mean...
At you, the media, and us.
The media aren't the ones that put in the bid. It was Real Madrid that put in the bid. But I must say, actually, on that, I do find it's very strange. In terms of the way the window in the market works, I thought it was very odd behaviour from Madrid. I mean, like, it feels like that's the sort of move that might only serve to irritate people rather than make something likelier. The only time, actually, the only similar situation was when they wanted Kylian Mbappe in a similar situation last year, and they put in quite a low offer to try and get him out of Paris Saint-Germain a year before his contract. It feels like it's kind of, it's almost like a power play with the club he's at. Because obviously Liverpool were never going to engage in that. They were never going to accept it. But then it just almost creates this extra strand to the storyline about a player who, as we say, is almost certain to leave.
But he can play in the knockout stage of the Champions League, can't he? So, you know, they're super light on defence. I'm
that's
talking,
true,
I'm
yeah.
not trying to upset
yeah.
Liverpool fans, but I'm thinking Real Madrid, if they're going to go for him, they've tried to accelerate this move and say, look, we might get him for nothing anyway. Do you want to? Do you want 20 million to go on a walk? But they're trying to accelerate it with how many injuries at the back that they've got. I'm thinking we're in a title race in Madrid, in the La Liga, and we're light in terms of what we need if we want to retain the Champions League. But yeah, it's very cheeky, though.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I think it's the cheekiness. Well, you're right. Madrid have had a bit of an injury crisis, especially with Carvajal out. But then one of the stories previously from Madrid was that they were initially not moving Alexander-Arnold too early because they're very conscious of the kind of the politics around succeeding Dani Carvajal, given he's a club legend in that way. I mean, if we think about the politics in the Premier League at Madrid, it's a whole other level.
Yeah, it is a whole other story. Well, we've got to talk about Manchester United because 5 defeats from 6 games leaves them in 14th spot going into this match, and they haven't won at Anfield in 9 years. Not only are they in trouble in terms of the table and in terms of their form, but contract situations at Manchester United as well. Harry Maguire signed a new one, but all the talk has been about Marcus Rashford, and after the Newcastle game, Joshua Zirkzee as well.
Yeah, I mean, Zirkzee, whatever about the performance, it's impossible not to feel sorry for him just on a human level, especially the way he came off. But it's another element that creates, I suppose, difficulty and noise around the club. Rashford, I mean, we've had several headlines this week. I was one of 5 journalists on Thursday that wrote that he turned down 3 very lucrative offers from the Saudi Pro League because if he is to leave Manchester United, he's made it clear he wants to go to a competitive club, which may be difficult because with the form he's been on the reported wages, and given that United would obviously want quite a high fee, there's currently not that many takers, which I suppose is a reflection of his own form. But yeah, it is incredible. We were saying there about Arne Slot, how composed he is, no matter what you throw at him, and how he makes everything feel like it's okay. To be fair to Amorim as well, given everything we've just been talking about, to watch him there and listen to him, you wouldn't think this is a guy who's overseeing, or at least is enduring, one of the worst spells in Manchester United's history because he's still so calm and assertive. And that, OK, I know there's been questions about what all this form means for him, but I think that's exactly what Manchester United need right now. And it's almost like they've got to radiate the idea that they've just got to back this guy. It's going to be difficult because there's all sorts of issues at this club, not least, I suppose, the state of the current squad. But he's someone worth backing in terms of how you actually restructure it and what you do next.
Wild that Manchester United are closer to the relegation zone than they are to the top 4.
Yeah, I think they'll be all right. There's 3 worse teams than them, to be fair. But no, it's not ideal. But I think he's calm because he knew what he was going into. It is a difficult situation. I think the thing with the manager, though, against the Newcastle game, since he's come in, he's been chopping and changing the team a lot. Now, whether it's been like a pre-season for him, he's trying to establish he can't play the same team because of their fitness. He's spoken a lot about that in his time since he's come in. But I was baffled by his team selection against Newcastle, that Newcastle outrun you. Their midfield absolutely dominate you. And he played a team that lacked mobility and then had to make that change so early on. And then Zirkzee is kind of, like you said, you feel for him because actually it was a tactical error. And this was one of the goals, again, crossing situations. And the whole 20-30 minutes tactically was completely wrong on his team. So that was probably the one thing I'd say. But he addressed it in his interview there. He knew they got dominated.
In that situation, as a former player, we can all see what Amorim's trying to do.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like Pep Guardiola in 2016-17 in his first kind of underwhelming season at City. He's putting the idea in place and was saying, right, no matter what, we stick with this. If you're a player, though, and even if you can see that this is what he wants and you understand the reasons why he's doing it, would it affect you to say, well, I know you're doing it, but it's just not working?
Well, yeah, you know it's not working because he hasn't got the players. You know, his team when he played at Sporting, again, it was different. They were physical, they were competed. The team I mentioned against Newcastle, you know, Eriksen, they're not going to outrun the midfield of Newcastle, Joe Linton and Guimaraes, who will just power through you. So it's difficult, but like you see with Ange Postecoglou, like you see with Ruben, like if you compromise your philosophy, if you compromise your style, you compromise you as a human being. Now what the manager and the owners have to do is say, well, we've got to back this guy with that philosophy, and if we don't, you're going to struggle and suffer. Yeah. So you can't ever compromise yourself, and as a player, you've got to jump on board, and if you're not in that, you'll probably find yourself off. Yeah.
The one thing I have to say about that is, I was thinking as you said it, it does feel like I don't want to overly criticise Ten Hag or absolve Amorim too much, but it does feel like the decision in the summer that the new club hierarchy made might have been one of the most costly in United in the post-Ferguson era, in the sense even though everyone knew Ten Hag was in trouble and they were likely to lose him during the season, they stuck with him. But they didn't just stick with him, they also committed to signings that he specifically wanted. As an example, De Ligt. And it does just feel, not only does that deny any new manager a pre-season and a chance to work, it also almost prolongs the period of being able to overhaul the squad, because that extra campaign with more money you've spent on players that don't necessarily fit, and it's even less of an opportunity to overhaul. And you can see why. You can see now why Amorim was initially insistent on maybe trying to stay at Sporting for the season.
Mm-hmm. And so with all that we've said about United, what can they go and do at Anfield?
I honestly don't think the way Liverpool are at the moment, even with Salah coming out, he will back that comment up, what he said. He isn't going to go quiet. He'll back himself. I can't see him getting a result. I honestly can't. From watching them at Newcastle, especially the first 30 minutes, if you start slowly against Liverpool, you're not coming back from that.
One of the teams who've had a really good festive period, in fact, have had the best season so far, is Liverpool, who find themselves 8 points clear of second place Nottingham Forest, who we will come on to. I know they've played a game more than the teams around them. But what a festive period it's been for Liverpool, and what a season it's been so far, just one game short of halfway for them. Yeah, they've been absolutely unstoppable. I think Arne Slot deserves a lot of credit. He's come in. I don't think too many people would have put them to be in this position. I think a lot of people would have probably said City are the favourites again this season. Arne Slot's kind of coming under the radar, not changed too much, kind of let the players do what they do, tweak one or two little things. But he's getting the best out of all these players. I mean, when you look at the situation Liverpool find themselves in as well, with the contract situations, these players have gone to another level. It's almost like you get players sometimes when it's the contract negotiation times. If they don't get what they want, they're down tools. They go, do you know what, enough's enough. Their players, probably the three best players who've performed this season, Salah, Van Dijk and Trent. It's been superb for Liverpool. And at the minute, it's theirs to lose. I know people have said, well, it's not quite over yet, we're only halfway, but I can't see anyone stopping this train anytime soon, because Salah looks like he's going to score every single time. Defensively, they're rock solid. They're getting goals from midfield. The blend in midfield is good as well. I just think the only thing that could derail Liverpool this season is injuries. And you don't want to see any players get injured, but that's the only thing I can see, because at the minute, they're just full steam ahead. Do we reassess this squad now? Because when Jurgen Klopp was leaving, it was like, well, they're going to have to make some changes, maybe going to have to freshen things up. There were a lot of grumblings when Chiesa was the only signing over the summer, and actually he hasn't featured for Liverpool. So do we reassess the quality of the squad?
No, I think that quality that's in there, and I think for whatever reason, the way the manager has them playing, you're seeing the best of all those qualities. I think they've had 10 or 11 players that scored within the Premier League season. And normally teams that have that many goal scorers do go on to win the Premier League. They're not just relying on Salah. So as well as he's playing, there's still no pressure on him to score that important goal, because other players are popping up and doing it, whether it be Curtis Jones, whether it be Jota, Diaz, Darwin Núñez, they're all chipping in. And when you're not leaking as many goals as well, like, you're in the driving seat, and it's all down to them now. Yeah, clean sheet yesterday against West Ham, which they will be grateful for. I think it was something like 9 goals conceded in their previous 4 or 5 games for Liverpool. So that defence had just started, even though it was the second best in the league behind Arsenal's, it just started to look as though it perhaps was a little bit vulnerable. But to pick up on Sean's point about the goals, 5 different goal scorers against West Ham as well.
Yeah, and especially players like Cody Gakpo, who I think a lot of people were excited to see when he arrived last season. But we probably didn't see enough of him or see the best out of him. But now under Arne Slot, he is just coming to his own. The link-up play between him, Diaz and Salah. I mean, the way that I think that Slot has made them just so much more free-flowing going forward, the way that players can drift inside, push ahead, play beyond and play in each other. They have so many ways that they can hurt opposition teams, and that makes them so difficult to play against. And then you've got the form of someone like Mohamed Salah and that just takes it to a whole nother level.
Do you know what it is? It's almost like when you look at the three positions up top, obviously one set in stone, and that's that right-hand side, that's Salah. He plays week in, week out regardless. But it's the way they could play Diaz as the false nine or Darwin Núñez. I've always thought Gakpo, if you look at his best form, certainly when he plays for his country as well, it comes off that left. I don't think he's a natural centre forward. To be able to interchange 4 players in 2 positions, if Darwin Núñez isn't doing it, okay, Jota will play. If that's not working, okay, Diaz, you go and play down the middle. It's just so many ways, and I think, again, it's testament to the manager because, again, when you've got a squad full of superstars, sometimes you get 1 or 2 players that are unhappy. I'm not getting as many minutes as I want. Why is he playing more than I am? Every single time they get an opportunity to play, they take it. And as I said, I really think by injuries, I just don't see who can live with that front 3 because they've just got so many options in so many different positions.
Whichever that front 3 is. And that's what I think is quite interesting about how he's used his forward players is that, as you said, some of them have benefited from maybe playing out wide and sometimes playing through the middle. Whereas Cody Gakpo, who moved around a lot under Jurgen Klopp, Jurgen Klopp is now actually more than likely going to be playing, out on the left-hand side and coming in. And so he's got a more fixed, but even if it's not fixed within the game, but he's got a more fixed starting position.